You know, most of you know I'm a physician, and I went to through medical school in late 50s and early 60s. Went into OBGYN and for many years practiced medicine. But even in my early years in medical school and medical training, I got fascinated with reading economic policy. Somebody said, well, why did you do that? And I said, well, it was sort of like a hobby. Some people go fishing and other things, but I just enjoyed trying to figure out why you have inflation, why you have business cycle, why you have a Federal Reserve, and became so fascinated. But those individuals who explained the free market, it turned out they were right, and they made a lot of predictions. For instance, way back when after World War II was over, they devised a monetary system called the Bretton Woods Agreement. Nobody was to have a true gold standard, but we would have a partial gold standard. And our country was the wealthiest, and we had 700 and some million ounces of gold, more than any other country ever held. So they said, well, the dollar will be as good as the gold, so all the other currencies will be connected to the dollar. And they thought that meant that it would be as good as gold forever. But there was one man by the name of Henry Hazlitt in 1944, when they set this up, he says it won't work. The governments will be tempted, in particular our government, to print too much money. Mm-hmm. And they did that. So more dollars were printed. We gave a lot of money away at foreign aid. The money went overseas. And the commitment was that anybody that turned in $35 could get an ounce of gold. If you were a foreigner, if you were an American, and you weren't even allowed to own gold. So anyway, that happened, and our gold supply went from over 700 million ounces of gold down to under 300 million ounces of gold. And that happened in 1971. Richard Nixon said, no more gold standard. He eliminated the gold standard with an executive order. And it was on that day that it dawned on me what age we were ushering in. And it was when I started talking out about the economic system. And that to me, I was convinced that the Austrian free market economists were right. The predictions came about. And it also indicated to us who understood this that without restraints on just printing money when you need it, the politicians would spend money and then print the money. And that's what we've been doing for 40 years. So you might ask, well, they've done it for 40 years. It must have worked pretty well. The whole thing didn't fall apart. But it took us 40 years to get to where we are today. Because in the early 1970s, we were the creditor nation. We were the rich nation. We had the jobs. We had the industry. And others owed us money. But today, our good jobs have gone overseas. We are a poorer country. Our middle class is poorer, and our debt is just unbelievable. Taxes can't be raised, even if you wanted to, because there's no money out there. You'll just destroy the economy if you try to do that. So we went from the richest nation as a creditor nation to a nation that owes more money than any country has ever owed in the history of the world, and the debt is the big problem. It's a worldwide debt, but it's all based on the dollar. The dollar is the standard, so everybody thinks the dollar can bail everybody else out. So we get to a point where a state needs bailed out, we bail out the states. Banks need bailed out, we bail out the banks. Corporations need bailed out, we bail out the corporation. But the situation is such that those on the inside get bailed out, and the middle class gets stuck with the bills. And this is what has this is what has become very clear to a lot of Americans now. This was something we should put aside and say, well, we have debt, but we're still doing well. Well, it's not going to be that way any longer.
Thank you very much indeed for your time. Thank you for joining us.